Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. Today is the men's individual world time trial championships. We got a distance of 46.1 kilometer. We'll call it 28.5 miles in length with two climbs on the course. The first one, not very difficult, but it's 2.5 kilometers thereabouts and just about 5%. So it's a climb that the time trial specialist can do sitting down in the seat, which means this course is pretty much set up for a time trial specialist because they got a lot of flat, long sections. They got some technical stuff with roundabouts and a few narrow turns and stuff, but a lot of dips and dives coming up. And then once you go up over the first 2.5 kilometer, you drop down a slightly technical descent, get to the bottom of that, it's a hard right turn, and then you got to carry a bunch of speed through that turn because you start the next climb that's about, I'll call it 1 kilometer. Really what it does is it comes in two sections of about 200, 300 meters, and then the next section of about 400 meters, but combine the two, we'll call it 1K, and that's in the middle of the course. You drop down that, you get into the finish, then you got to go full gas all the way to the line. But in my mind, I'd call this a pure time trial course just because both of the climbs, with the exception of that small 300 meter section of the second climb, it's sitting down, power on the pedals, which the time trial specialists like. Now when the cameras come on, I'm going to fast forward you a little bit further so we can get into this 59 rider start list here at the men's individual world time trial championships. And I'm going to show you Nelson Oliveira. The rider normally rides for Movistar for this trade team, but here he rides for Portugal, and he is a Portuguese national time trial champion. So he comes through the hot seat, and he's 4 seconds up on the time of Soren Vorenskil from Norway to put himself in the hot seat with a time of 55 minutes and 37 seconds. Now coming up behind him is going to be Stefan Bissinger out there, and if I take you back to his start ramp, he was the one really flying off the start ramp as we're leaving the velodrome there, coming up the side of the velodrome, and then exiting, and he sets up magnificently for this first left turn. Blazing straight through the turn. When he comes up to his first time check, he's second at 1 second back, so he's drifting a little bit. Comes into the second time check, 42 seconds back, so he's losing a ton of time. But when we start looking at the other riders behind him, it's Casper Asgreen out there that's just flying on the pedals, setting blistering times, putting himself with the best first time check of the day at just under 1 second. Then when he comes up to the second time check, he's 24 seconds up on the best time. So Casper Asgreen's flying. We see up front, we'll see that Stefan Bissinger's crossing the line here to put himself 2 minutes and 34 seconds down in 10th place. But the reason why I highlighted Stefan Bissinger is because they didn't show Casper Asgreen finishing here. Normally Casper Asgreen's a fine time trial specialist, but here he must be going real good because he went 2 minutes and 34 seconds faster than Stefan Bissinger, and now he's in the hot seat. We start looking at the next riders leaving the ramp. Magnus Sheffield's flying as he leaves the velodrome, and then he comes through the first time check 8 seconds faster than anyone here in the early starters of the men's individual time trial championships. Gets into the second time check, he's 14 seconds up on the best time. Then when he goes into the third time check, he's lost massive amount of time, and he crosses the line 38 seconds back from the time of Casper Asgreen. Well, we get into one of the next riders here that's certainly going to highlight. It's Edoardo Affini, and when we see him warming up, you see he's wearing special shoes, and he's got his shoe covers pulled up his leg there, and we start looking at his shoes, and we see that they're different than his normal racing shoes. This is why I hate the individual time trials. Okay, I like it when I'm flying out there, there's no doubt about it, but even when you cross the finish line, you don't know if you won, unless of course you're the last rider going off, which I've got to experience second from last, but I've never got to go off last and then still win the individual time trial, so you don't get to celebrate the same way. But when you start looking at all the details here of how their bikes are prepped, and you look at Edoardo Affini, and let me remind you guys, he rides for Visma Lease bike, and oftentimes we have seen Visma Lease bikes, Edoardo Affini and Wout van Aert running the double disc, which means he's running a front disc. But here at the men's individual time trial championships, they must have decided it wasn't worth it because he's got an aero front wheel on, but it's not a full disc. He's got his aero pedals there. He's got his special shoes on. Then he's going to pull his rubber aero shoe covers over his shoes, so you know his feet are going to be hot at the end of the day. But he is running hot because he's got the fastest time after he leaves the ramp and starts coming up over the velodrome track there. We see him get into the first time check, and he's 5 seconds up on the fastest time of Magnus Sheffield that was before him. But as we start seeing him go into the third time check, he's 21 seconds up on the fastest time. Then Eduardo Affini's powering down the finish line to finish 35 seconds faster than Kasper Asgreen. This is going to put him in the hot seat, but we still got a lot of favorites. But you got to remember, Eduardo Affini just got done winning the European Men's Individual Time Trial Championships, and that means that goofy-looking helmet that they're wearing, the TT helmet for Visma Lease bike, has already got themselves finally a win here in the 2024 season, but now they're sitting in the hot seat at the Men's Individual World Time Trial Championships. Problem is, we still got some hot favorites to leave the ramp, and Jay Vine's one of them, normally riding for UAE team member. It's his trade team, but here he's riding for Team Australia, and he's flying too, out there setting fastest times as he comes into the second time check, 18 seconds up on Eduardo Affini, who rides for Italy. Now with that, Jay Vine's flying, but we got other riders leaving the ramp back there, and it's Stefan Kuhn. When he comes through his first time check, he's 1 second faster than Jay Vine, but then he starts losing some time, and he drops 39 seconds on the second time check here on the Men's Individual World Time Trial Championships. So Stefan Kuhn's not going to win the Individual Time Trial Championships here because he's still 15 seconds down on his third time check. Now we start looking at the big time favorites. Josh Tarling's leaving the ramp. He's out there setting some times, but the camera's really focusing on Primoz Roglic. And then it's going to focus right after that, Filippo Ganna. Filippo Ganna's coming up to the start ramp there. We see him adjusting his helmet a little bit. Jumps onto his bike there, that fabulous Team Ineos bike. As he pedals backwards, I'm thinking, oh man, you don't ever want to pedal backwards once you get up on the ramp because these bikes are really specific. If I take you right back to Eduardo Affini's when he was warming up, they're running one bikes, right? And so when the wheels all crossed up, you can drop the chain. So I got a little worried when I saw him pedal backwards, but he looks okay, gets the countdown, leaves the ramp, and starts sprinting out of that first left corner. Well, then the cameras find Remco Evenepoel. There's trouble in the house. This is the last rider to leave the individual men's world championships, and he's dropped his chain on the ramp. We see right now he's got his mechanic trying to get the chain back on, and he's got the official who's normally counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for Remco Evenepoel. Now he's jumping in there trying to get the chain back on too. I'm thinking you don't want the official in there. If he's not a registered mechanic for your trade team, you definitely do not want the official. Well, the official realizes he's just getting in the way too, and he jumps out of the way. As he jumps out of the way, we see Remco Evenepoel. He takes his hand and shoves it into the camera right there. He's trying to get it all on video right now, as we see they're having all kinds of problems with Remco Evenepoel's large chain ring there and the one by that won't let the chain come back on. Once we get through that, they rewind the film and they show us the replay how it happened. How did it happen? Well, Remco Evenepoel pedaled backwards. Once you start to see the chain coming off as he's pedaling backwards, you see it a little bit off. And once it gets to the top, of course, Remco Evenepoel is going to feel the chain get locked up there on the chain catcher at the top there that's supposed to keep the chain on. Well, the chain pulls off, and when the chain catcher is supposed to keep the chain on, it makes it really hard to get the chain back up underneath it and back onto the chain ring. That's why you see the second staff member for Remco Evenepoel's Belgium team start to jump in too. Once he jumps in, all of a sudden something flicks off the bike and lands on the ground, and then that staff member jumps out because he realizes that they might need a spare bike, so he disappears. That leaves Remco Evenepoel with only one mechanic there to start adjusting his bike and getting the chain back on. He gets it back on about the same time that staff member comes up, and as the staff member was coming up, well, the official went down and picked up the little piece that had fallen on the ground, and now he's trying to hand it to the second member. As I'm watching, I'm thinking, what is that piece? Is that the chain catcher right there? Is that something else? I don't know how important it is. Remco Evenepoel decides to get back up on his bike, and then this time he does it the way you have to do when you clip in, as you got the holder behind that's still sitting up there that was just a passenger watching everything happen. He jumps back in there, he's holding the seat up, and Remco Evenepoel has to pedal backwards again to clip out. Okay, throughout my time, and it took me a while to learn this trade, and it's one that I forget about until you watch the riders like Filippo Ganna. When he pedaled backwards, I got that flash in my head of don't pedal backwards. When Remco Evenepoel did, it fell off. But when we see Remco get back on for the second time, he pedals back extremely slowly to get the pedal in that right section so that he can clip on. The only thing is, honestly, every time I learned to do individual time trials in my day, in the later days when I started figuring out you don't want your chain to pop off, I get the chain, the crank in the right position. I click in on the right foot, have the holder hold me up, and then I wiggle it in on the left so I'm ready to leave with the right pedal dropping down first. Instead, Remco Evenepoel, maybe he's a lefty, I don't know, but he's leaving with the left foot there. Maybe he's just afraid to rewind the cranks one more half a revolution there and have it fall off, because the official's finally counting down with 5 fingers. That means that Belgium, that already won the Olympic men's road race and the Olympic men's individual time trial, has to get 100% focus right now to leave the ramp. It looks like he just about is, as he gets the last finger there, and then Remco Evenepoel drops down the ramp, comes up the other side of the track there, exits the track, and then we see him touching his computer, starting his computer, so you know there was a little bit of chaos happening up there on the ramp because he forgot to start his computer. Well, we'll find out later that won't do him any good anyways, as Remco Evenepoel flies through the left turn. We go up front, we look at Primož Roglič now, who's going full gas through the roundabout. As he comes out a little bit tight, he exits with just the right corner bend right there, makes it through cleanly, and then we see Filippo Ganna, the Italian rider, 2-time individual world time trial champion. He's flying through this same roundabout, but he exits much deeper to the right than Primož Roglič does. He has to do some massive maneuvers on the bike to get it over to the left and then make the right turn. He does and comes through cleanly. Then we start seeing Remco Evenepoel through that same roundabout. Well, he only went about as deep as Primož Roglič, so it didn't look like he scrubbed much speed. And when we started looking at the time checks between Remco Evenepoel and Filippo Ganna, well, Remco Evenepoel's already up about 5 seconds, but they haven't even gotten to the first time check. Well, Roglič is the first to pass through the time check, but he's dropping 25 seconds on the times of the leaders in front of him. Now, we start looking at the first time checks for Filippo Ganna. He's blowing through the first time check, 5 seconds up on the time of Josh Tarling. I told you he was going good, but we missed his first time checks. We don't get to see it till right now when we see Filippo Ganna go through his time check. Now, we go back up to Primož Roglič. He's dropping more time. He's 47 seconds in 9th place at the second time check. It's looking horrendous for the Slovenian who just got done winning the Tour of Spain. But let me remind you guys, at the interview he did at the Tour of Spain, he said he's not a time trial specialist. I don't know if that's really true, because he is already an Olympic time trial, individual time trial winner from 4 years back. Well, maybe 5 now or 4.5, depending on how you want to look at it. With COVID, call it 3.5. But with this time here for Primož Roglič, we know he's dropping time, but we know he won the Vuelta a España, so how he's going to finish, well, that's still up in the air. We go up front and we find Stefan Kuhn. He's dropping 15 seconds now at the third time check to Jay Vine in front. Now we start going back down to the race favorites here with Filippo Ganna. Well, he's blazing through the third time check, 44 seconds up on Jay Vine, and then we find Jay Vine. What happened to him? Well, he's crashed. He's coming into the finish line now, all bloodied up, blood splattered all over him, spread out across his face everywhere. He must have had a horrendous crash, but he's still setting a fast time. As he crosses the line, he'll finish 29 seconds down from Affini to put himself into second place. The next rider to cross the line is going to be Stefan Kuhn at 53 seconds for 5th place there to Affini. Now the next rider after him is going to be Josh Tarling at 23 seconds to put himself into second place right now at this moment to Eduardo Affini. That means Affini's looking like he can get himself a medal here at the men's individual world time trials championships, because when we look at Primož Roglič, he's got Filippo Ganna, the time trial champion, coming up hot on his wheel with a kilometer to go. It'll be about 150 meters to go. Ganna's catching the Slovenian in front. He'll fly through, cross the line, put himself in the hot seat, 48 seconds up on the time of Eduardo Affini. Now he looks like he's got a shot at gold, but I already told you Remco Evenepoel was flying back there, so unless the Belgian riders messed up, we know right now that it's looking more like silver, because Remco Evenepoel's coming into 1.4K to go. He's got some time to spare, but it's not much. Once he crosses under the Flamme Rouge there with 1K, the clock's at 52 minutes. But the time up there, Filippo Ganna at 53.08 means there's not a whole lot of time to spare for Remco Evenepoel. But as he comes down the final straightaway here, he knows he's going to win with 8 seconds to spare. He sits up with about 25 meters to go, posts up, both hands in the air, waving the number 1 right there. I might have actually enjoyed doing individual time trials if I could start last every time and still win like Remco Evenepoel is doing and getting a big time celebration as he crosses the line. Now, once he goes through, he's going to come off. He knows he wins gold here at the Men's Individual World Time Trial Championships with a massive time of 53.02 and averaging 52.1 kilometers an hour to win gold here at the Men's Individual Time Trial. He'll come to a stop. He'll get some smooches from his woman, his wife, and then he's going to get hugs from her too. Then he sees my man Victor Campenaerts get some hugs from his compatriot there from Belgium, Victor Campenaerts. Now it's time to go up to the podium and start celebrating. But before we get there, let's look at some of the fans waving the double fingers there. Well, that's because Remco Evenepoel is not the first time winning here of the Men's Individual Championships here for the time trial. It's the second time he's done it, so congratulations, Remco Evenepoel. When you see him up on the podium, well, Italy can't be too disappointed because they went second with Filippo Ganna and third with Edoardo Affini. So it was a fine individual championships here for Italy too, but Belgium's got to be super happy. Now Slovenia, Primož Roglič. What's this mean for the men's individual road championships coming up next weekend? Should we all be worried? Does that mean that Primož Roglič is riding 100% right now for Tadej Pogačar? Nah, I don't think so. It's just like Primož said when he was at Tour of Spain. He's not a time trial specialist, and it's true, since Remco Evenepoel's been on the scene, he normally wins more often than he loses, and the Slovenian's not winning individual time trials too much like we used to see in the old days, and that's the problem that Filippo Ganna is going to have to deal with every time he shows up at individual time trials too. Remember back in the day when we're talking in 20 and 21, when Filippo Ganna was winning all the individual time trials in the Giro and the Road and the World Championship individual time trials, well now everyone has to deal with Remco Evenepoel. But when we're looking at the road race for Primož Roglič, if you're a GC rider and you don't win the individual time trial championships here and you finish 12th on the day, you got caught from your 2-minute man behind, what does that mean? Doesn't mean a whole lot. He could still come really good for the road race. There's no doubt about it. GC riders always climb well. They always ride well because the legs come better as you start getting into the race. Individual time trial riders, they always go good at the individual time trials like we see Filippo Ganna always does and Remco Evenepoel. That's their number one specialty. Even Remco Evenepoel, who's won the Vuelta a España before in his career, he is a time trial specialist before he is anything else. And when you look at Filippo Ganna, it's the same scenario. Can both these riders climb when they're on their absolute best form? For sure. But first, they're time trial specialists, then they're GC riders, or they're one-day road stage riders. But when you look at a rider like Primož Roglič, as he said in the Vuelta a España, he's not the individual time trial specialist, certainly not anymore. But he doesn't mean that he can't do the road race and still win a gold next weekend for Slovenia. But does add some drama if there's a little bit of hesitation between the two riders next weekend in the road race. Will Primož Roglič just sell out 100% for Tadej Pogačar? I can't answer that question, so that's why you got to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys after the men's road race time trial world championships, and we'll find out if Primož Roglič is going to ride for Tadej Pogačar or if he's going to go on his own and try to win gold. Either way, like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.